Hello guys, welcome to this special episode of Daft Blow Podcast. Subscribe, like and share and click on the bell to be updated with new uploads on my channel. Daft Blow Podcast is even on Spotify, ListenNotes, TuneIn, Castbox and Podtoppen from Sweden. Instagram and Facebook always open if you have questions and thoughts. Email in the description if you don't have social media. The end of the year is near. So for this episode, I have chosen the most important infos from some episodes that you liked. Let's start with the first episode of this second season. Here I talked about Jon Veit, leader of the section band. Here you can listen a bit of his biography. This section was a Swedish extreme metal band from Strömstad. I hope the pronounce is okay. Strömstad. Formed in 1989 by guitarist and vocalist and main songwriter Jon Veit or Veit, I don't know the pronounce, forgive me for that, and bassist Peter Palmdahl. From Wood Fire That book, we find a bit of history of the band, especially about the founder, Jon Veit. He was born in Katrineholm to a Norwegian father and a Swedish mother on 28 June 1975, but then they moved to Strömstad. He has a younger brother Emil and a sister Sarah. His parents were teachers and at school he was sometimes with them and he spoke with other students. By them he was introduced to these rock bands like AC/DC, Motorhead, Death Zeppelin and Iron Maiden. His father Anders loved music and that was a good way to discover new bands. And when he was 8 years old, just 8 years old, with his friend Mattias Johansson, went to Stockholm to see Def Leppard. His parents supported this new passion of their own son, full of passion of this heavy metal music that with his friend Peter Palmdahl and his younger brother Emil formed a band. They started to listen together heavier bands like Venom and Metallica, and during summer he created a magazine called Varning, means warning. Jon and his own band in 1987 decided to call themselves Thunder, and they entered Rock of Bohuslän, a talent show for demo bands organized in the province. Then let's continue with Emperor and a bit of history of the band from Notodden, where everything evolved in the early 90s. Then there was an important drummer that joined, Pod Faust. This is what I've said. Notodden has Northern Europe's biggest blues festival, which started in 1988. In 1989 they started something called the Blues Seminar, where kids from the surrounding areas would get touring from blues musicians and put bands together. That's where he met Samot and the guys from his band. They needed a guitar player and Samot was 1 year older than him, but the other guys in the band were 16. They had mopeds and they had already recorded demos, so at 13 years old he had more experienced people to learn from. Thomas Haugen, known as Samot. About him on Wikipedia we discovered that he was born in Hammerfest and is the son of Spoonful of Blues, bass player Jens Haugen, who encouraged his son to play bass guitar. The chemistry between these two musicians is very strong to form various bands with different names like Dark Device and Xerasia. Xerasia recorded a demo in August 1990 on a tape with this name called simply Rehearsal 90. Some tracks from it will end on the other band demo, always composed by them, but with a different name, Embryonic. Mortis' real name Håvard Ellefsen, born July 25, 1975. We discovered about him that he was born in Skien, Telemark, and began his musical career playing bass for Emperor. He stayed with the band just over 1 year before going on to create his own solo project. Thought, unlike his previous band, the music would be dark ambient oriented. The year 1992 is very important for them. They always been in contact with the legendary black metal guitarist and founder of the true mayhem band, Øystein Aarseth, known as Euronymous. He founded his label called Deadly Silence Productions and had a shop in Oslo called the Helvete. The black metal movement was expanding in Norway and even all around the world, but the news were not very positive, totally the opposite. This is what was exactly happening in one of the most peaceful countries in the world. The church burnings, a protest against Christianity, and the church seen as an institution and a cause to oppress weak minds, according to them. The situation in Norway started to be almost out of control. Count Grishnak or Varg Vikernes was on the headlines in Norway and even abroad to have burned several churches. Meanwhile, these events were appearing everywhere. They found a new member called Faust, real name Bård Gulvik Heitun, born in Hedmark on April 21, 1974. Before being the Emperor drummer, he was in two other bands, Stigma Diabolicum and Thorns. He was a good friend of Euronymous and a future member of the Black Circle as well. This guy was not only famous to be an important drummer, but even to have killed a man. Another episode that I'd liked very much to talk about was Bathory. Here I'll try to dive into his private history and musical career. I'm very glad to have worked so much on Bathory because it's one of my favorite bands, and I hope that you appreciated and enjoyed these 3 episodes very much. These are the best parts of this Bathory section. Börje was only 20 years old when he started to be a father. He was working at the time as a sound technician and his son was always in the studio because him and Quarto's mother didn't have family members around them to help. In the 70s, Börje founded the label Typhoon. Around 1975, Quarto started to play drums. His first songs to play were from Kiss, one of his favorite bands. Börje once came back from the store, giving to him a drum kit, and he was so happy that he started to carry the drums in the forest nearby to practice. After they moved in a bigger house, the kids organized a Kiss concert for their parents with even their makeup. Quarton has 3 brothers, Anders, Limpan and Jenny, known as Jenny Tabler, for the cover of Song to Alapai and Silver Wing Song, with Quarton's arrangement and lyrics that you can listen on Spotify and even on the CD In Memory of Quarton Volume 3. Around 1978, Ace was kicked out of school for his rebellious character. He was breaking windows and causing chaos around. This didn't discourage him, but it was a new beginning. Börje discovered a special talent in his son, and he eventually started to work part-time on the label. In 1980, Börje divorced and Quarto moved in Vällingby, a Stockholm suburb. He felt emarginated, but despite that, he started to play guitar and be more enthusiastic about the music career. The first work in the music was the cover art. His hand holding a skull candle with fake blood, and it was the cover of Oz, Fire in the Brain, published in 1983 under Typhoon. After J.C. Blade Awards, we arrived to the most important years for Quarton. Between 1980 and 1983, he started practicing with some friends in punk groups with strange names like Oi. But the turning point came on 16 March 1983, to be more accurate. Quarton met on this day 2 guys, a drummer and a bassist. The drummer was the famous Jonas Åkerlund, movie and music videos director, while the bassist is Fredrik Melander, known as Hanoi. He chosen this name thanks to the band Hanoi Rocks. The 3 guys met at Musikborsen in Sigtuna Gatan, a Stockholm street, and they started to work on certain songs and rehearsed. Quarton choosing this name for all his music career for many reasons. He wanted to use weird names impossible for a Swedish to pronounce and to make fun of the Swedish rock band Europe. 1987. Still, the Satanic Team is more and more influent, not only musically but even graphically. The cover of this album, Under the Sign of the Black Mark, wanted to shock the public, and I found some information about it from Black Death Nostalgia Facebook page. It is not a painting, sounds hard to believe, The photo was taken at the Royal Swedish Opera House only seconds before Act 2 of the play Carmen commenced. The stage featured a rocky mountainous set, which was perfect as Quarton wanted to recreate something with Francisco de Goya's Witch's Sabbath in mind. 4 half-naked girls were supposed to be in the photo, but the photographer was unable to properly fit them in. The infamous goat-headed beast was portrayed by Swedish bodybuilder Leif Enborg, who wore a papier-mâché goat head and loincloth, whilst swinging a gigantic ox bone with decaying meat still on it. On the other hand, he was shaking a wag of cat's fur to it can barely be made out of the actual album cover. Only 4 shots were taken in total, and in order to make the beast more noticeable, the centerpiece of the shot had to be enlarged in such an extent that vast parts of the set had to be left out of the album cover. And the design of the black mark started to be more successful not only in Europe, but even in the United States, where Börje Boss Forsberg organized a promotional tour with interviews and not only, to even find a record company there, and this was the New Renaissance Records. This is what Börje remembered about this trip that revealed to the magazine's Video Rock. I remember when we were going to the USA from Finland in 1987 for promotion and landed at the JFK airport in New York. When we passed through the market hall in Helsinki prior to that, Ace saw some real beef bones in the meat counter and he decided on purchasing some immediately. He had the idea to use them in one of his photo sessions. They were so big that they could not fit in any of our bags without them sticking out, but we still managed to get them on the plane. However, we were stopped immediately when we landed, so we were talking to this Japanese company and we sent them this one-off bio package with a picture of the 3 of us and the names. But I guess they either didn't like the outfits or couldn't pronounce the names. For the distribution, talks fell through at some point. Summer 1989. Bathory enters again in the studio to record the most important album for the Viking metal genre, called Hammerheart, produced by Bosse and Quarton, released on 16 April 1990 under Noise International. Ace explained the motivation that contributed to this change of label. Noise had the best distribution in Europe about the metal music, but despite this, it caused more chaos in 2 months. Bathory was signed that with Under One Flag for 3 years. A particular event in 1992, 1 month after he released Jubileum. AlbertaStars.com tells the story about the Decide Gore Fest concert where Quarton participated. On November 25, 1992, at Fryshuset in Stockholm, a bomb detonated while the opening act Gorefest was playing. Daniel Ekerot reports that suddenly a loud bang could be heard. Everyone thought it was part of the performance and Gorefest played to the end. Bathory Quarton, on the other hand, was backstage security at the time, said that the band played so loud that no one heard the bomb. As you have listened here, Quarton worked as a backstage security for this concert and claimed that the capacity of hearing of his ears was reduced of at least 75%. While he was promoting his solo album in Europe, he found desperation and felt better. This is what he said. I got it thanks to talking to all those people, because 2 weeks after I got home, I had all the material for a new album. So I went into the studio for 3 days and then everything was finished. We thought that it was probably the most brutal thing we had ever done. And we didn't have any effects, echoes, nothing extreme. It was going to be naked, raw and simple. After Twilight of the Gods, he believed it was his last album. He was depressed when he composed it and even declared that he can't listen to it. So after the too much melodic and classical music influence, he felt nostalgic about his early albums. He spent 8 years listening only classical music and then revealed in one interview that it has been a mistake. He never listened to metal and was not updated with new albums that were coming out. In June 1994, Quarton with Volta Kotar entered the studio again to start working to some songs and record the material. This is what Quarton remembered about those days. When I came back to Stockholm in 2 weeks' time, I written all of the material that eventually ended up on the album, and it was like you have this hard-on for 24 hours, you just can't get it down, like you were high or something. And we just went into the studio, we didn't rehearse one single time before recording. We just went in there and in 4 days we recorded the entire album. We didn't care about production or mixing or anything like that. It was more or less just sticking our heads inside the studio. Quarton and Boss had a promotional tour in Toronto, Canada for Blood on Ice. Black Mark had even an office there for North American operations. There they have been hosted on a radio show for an interview. If some of you has the recording of this one, you can write a Daft Blow podcast. Besides Canada, no information about other places they have been. Around the 90s, he was planning to write a book talking about his life and Battery project, but after these bad feedbacks, he stopped working on it. He had the perception to kill the legend and he didn't want to have that kind of responsibility. Then I started to discover more about thrash metal. This band is very important into German thrash, and I'm talking about Sodom. I make you listen a bit of the story. Sodom was formed by Tom and Joe Ripper, real name Thomas Sue, born on 19 February 1963, and Aggressor, real name Frank Terstegen, as a guitarist. Before starting to be a musician, Tom grew up in Bloor, a large suburb of Gelsenkirchen. During free time, he likes to collect postcards from all over the world and different times. From 1980 until 1989, he worked as a machinist in a colliery before becoming a full-time musician. After choosing the name, they needed a logo, so Tom designed it himself without computer technology and stuff. During the same year, a new member was found, in particular a drummer. For a short period, Rainer Fokker, known as Bloody Monster, was in the band, but they fired him because not reliable, and at his place, Chris Witchhunter, real name Christian Johannes Ludek, born on 18 December 1965, sadly died in 2008 for liver failure. May he rest in peace. In 1983, Sodom recorded a demo, and this is what Tom remembers about that. For the first one, which in metal, we got a couple of songs together. We had 4 songs to record, and a friend of mine had the rehearsal room near us, and he said, I'm going to help you recording this. And we put every instrument on a small PA in the rehearsal room, and we recorded with 2 microphones, just with a tape deck, and it sounds awful nowadays, but at the time we thought it sounded really powerful. As a new guitarist for this new EP, they got in contact with a guy from Essen, Grave Violator, real name Josef Dominik, born on 2nd March 1967, friend of Mille Petrozza, leader of Creator Band, a good contact of Sodom. With this new lineup, Sodom showed all their potential, 20 minutes of pure darkness. Talking about the arrangement, I noticed a very evil sound with demonic vocals and guitar. In 1985, the band had the other 2 shows, one on 19 October 1985 in Dortmund, opening for Destruction and Iron Angel with Creator, another one on 28 December 1985 at Denderhouten, Belgium, opening for Blind Fury and Creator. In 1986, another date on 21st June 1986 in Essen, Germany, always with Creator and Samhain. With this new lineup, they recorded their first studio album, Obsessed by Cruelty. What about female metal bands? Well, for this season, that will continue of course, I've chosen another thrash metal band, Ice Age, that came out recently. This is their story. They formed on 14 January 1985 in Gothenburg by Pia Nyström and Sabrina Sabbe Kistrand, that was only 15-16 years old at the time. Before this one, they were in other bands, but not so much relevant. Their first name for the band was Rock Solid, but then changed in Ice Age. Pia Nyström, lead guitarist, Sabrina Sabbe Kistrand guitars and vocals, Tina Strömberg drums, and Dickie Larson on bass since October 1986. About the name Ice Age, this is what Pia says about it. We wanted a name that had something to do with the cold north, since we are from Sweden. An Ice Age is something very powerful, something you can't escape. Ice Age participated to important concerts in Europe, like the famous Open Air Festival in Belgium, Netherlands and Switzerland, and not only, even a tour with Candlemass, famous Swedish doom metal band with the ex-vocalist Messiah Marcolin. About Eastern Justice, I could say all tracks are mystic and dark. In February they have started another European tour, but they interrupted it after 3 weeks for the departure of Sabrina. With this new lineup, they even appeared on MTV Metal Hammer in 1989 for the Eastern Justice video thanks to Sacrifice X channel. A new member appeared, and I'm talking about Johanna Holmstead, that surely cooperated with Vicky. In this season I had the pleasure even to discover so much, even about the metal scene of my land, Italy. This band does Roman metal. Why this name? Check it out here. The Apocalypse, an Italian metal band from Turin, north of Italy. The band formed in 2015 at the age of 14 by Harry Manton said. He explained in one interview why choosing this name for his musical career. Erymanthos is the name that belongs to certain different characters in Greek and Latin mythology, and it is also the name of a Greek mountain. It was written down as Erymanthon in Ovid's Metamorphoses, I believe, a Latin literature work, which is where I picked it up from. It reflects both my love for mountains and a connection to ancient Greece and Rome. Exactly on February, after 30 years, the Quarton started working on Blood, Fire, Death. If you listened to my previous episode about him, I have talked about this particular album. Go to listen to it. Coming back to the band on December 23rd, they released an album called Civis Pacem Parabellum. That means if you want peace, prepare for war. That you can listen on the official Apocalypse YouTube page. This album was produced by Harry Manton, that recorded all instruments. The album cover is The Final Day of Sagunto by Francisco Domingo Marquez, and it's an awesome painting. Listening to this album, I can perceive a Blue Fire Death atmosphere. Long intros with acoustic guitar and angelic choirs gives you an atmosphere of classical music. Until June 2019, Apocalypse released a tribute to Quarton called To All Pie in memory of Quarton, and it contains covers from first album Blood, Fire, Death, Requiem, Hammerheart, The Twilight of the Gods, and Norland 2. What can I say about this? It's a real tribute. I am very honored to have listened to an incredible artist singing the same tone vocally and musically. Every song was almost equal to the original. I really advise you to listen to it, that you can find on Apocalypse YouTube channel. It's almost perfect. Next release is called Odes, published on November 21st of the same year. Recorded at Darkwood Studios like the previous releases, the album cover is a picture of a mountain. We arrive right now to another album by Apocalypse called Collapse, released on May 17, 2020. The cover contains German airplanes with skulls in the background, maybe a tribute to Requiem album. Analyzing the lyrics, I can see the theme of despair, lost hope with only darkness that rises. There's only one thing a person could do for the band: run away if you want to survive. Fighting the country oppressors where a war is just a game to die. Indoctrination and domination. Next album is the first released by a label, Earth and Sky Productions, called Pedemontium, on 21st January 2021. The cover is a picture of a mountain called Monviso, one of the most important mountains of Italy. If you look better, there is even a symbol on the picture, and it's the famous sun wheel. I have talked about it in the Quarton episode part 2. Go to listen to it. Harry Manton, that composed alone all the albums, explained in one interview the lyrics and song explanations, and he said, Pedemontium is a brief description and celebration of Piedmont, the Italian region he lives in, which is even the Latin name of this album. Well, I hope that you have liked this best of season 2 episode. I hope next year will come out more bands and informations and biographies about new bands. I can't wait! Thank you to all people that will listen to this episode not only on YouTube but even on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Castbox and other platforms. But for now, see you next year!